Hello, friends. Friends and enemies. This is Dan again, tormenting you. All right, this is my fourth broadcast today. I know this will not continue, but it's a productive day. I'm doing a pen and ink sketch of a house. It happens to be the house that we all are staying in. Hang on, let me pick you up for a moment and show you the scene that I'm looking at. I'm going to crop it, something like that. Of course, take that car out of there. This is the house we're staying in. Saturday through, I didn't get here till Sunday, but anyway, some of the guys got here Saturday through Thursday. And here's a funny irony. I have painted this house. I don't remember when. Over the years, I made several trips to this cute little town, Beaufort. And somewhere along the line, I painted this house. I didn't remember that until the second day I was here when I saw this fence. I said, wait a minute, I painted this. I painted this house. How funny. Did it, it was not a commission. It was just got my attention. It was actually this fence, which you will see here in a minute, is playing a prominent role in the scene before me. I'm going way off the top. That will not work. Well, that's why we do it in a light color first, right? So that we can make changes like that. Okay, the height of the fence. No. Oh, wait. I did the wrong line. I'm already confused. Here we go. Whew, there we go. Thought I was really going crazy for a minute there. I am not going to try to capture the whole house. I think it was built, I think in 1910. So it's, right, old, respectable old house. And the beauty of drawing in this manner. So okay, wait a minute. There's a little bit of confusion here. I have confused you mightily if you're paying any attention. I said this was going to be a pen and ink sketch, and here I am drawing in watercolor pencil. What is the meaning of this? Should be your question. I'm looking right into the sun up there. So the meaning of this is that I'm going to do, I don't know if I've ever done this before. This is a fun new adventure, new experiment. I'm going to indeed do a pen and ink sketch of this house with watercolor pencil underpainting sketch underpainting. What's the best way to say that? So it is in fact going to be a pen and ink sketch with a little bit of watercolor in it. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do, and I don't think I've ever done this before, but it just tickles my imagination. I'm sort of saying, huh, I think this will look neat. You know, this is one of those, I bet it would look neat if kind of experiments. So what I'm thinking is, I bet it would look neat if I do my, what some of you just saw me do a little bit ago, do my watercolor pencil sketch, and then do a pretty detailed pen and ink drawing on top of it, and then just give a quick wash. You know what? My ratios are still not right. That's why I'm doing this, eh? That's why I'm doing the start with a light color. In this case, blue. It all looks right, except the fence is just a little bit too high. So let's lower the fence again for the second time. Oh, there we go. That's one of my mistakes. Who doesn't love finding their mistakes? You know, when you actually figure out what you did wrong, that's a really good thing. Unless you're all done and you thought it didn't have any mistakes. That's what's not fun. That is not fun. Okay, let's be clear. Not fun. I think I'm all done, and then I discover I screwed up royally. Not fun. Yes, fun. Know that you're not done and something's not right and you can't figure out what it is, and then you figure it out. That's fun. There we go. Let's just be clear here. Again, this is the house that we are staying in for very low rent because it's one of our members. David is good friends with the people who own the house, so we're paying a very modest rent for 5 days. Now there's actually another house over here, but there's trees pretty close by. I've just moved this tree over a little bit, and I'm going to ignore the house that is actually there. All right, let's take a look at that. Okay, I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna give myself an extra ½ inch up here. It doesn't matter to me too much in this that the drawing is off center on the page. I mean, if that really bothered me, I would take the drawing home, or even here, would take a ruler and trim the paper so that it was equal. Does that make sense? So I'm not greatly bothered by the fact that okay, let's look at some basic ratios again. Boy, I keep raising this gable higher and higher and higher. That's my third drawing of that rendering of that gable. Ooh. Let's make sure that I have a tool here. Hang on. Evidently, something's wrong with my brain. I don't know if anybody else has this problem, but I am terrible, evidently, at least when I'm sitting down. Yeah, that's true. I'm good when I'm standing up. When I'm sitting down, I am terrible at visualizing a true vertical. Isn't that crazy? So my plumb is out of plumb, so to speak. Oh, I actually was correct that time. There, how about that? Accidents will happen. All right, and a little bit unusual here. My second color is because I have a feeling about this drawing. My second color is actually going to be brown. So I think that I'm only going to do preliminary drawings in blue and brown. Oh, and I didn't finish telling you what I'm going to do. I said I'm doing something unusual. I didn't finish describing it. I'm going to do a fairly finished pen and ink, like more finished than I do when I'm doing a watercolor. Okay, a watercolor sketch, more detailed than that, like some cross hatching and so forth. And then I'm thinking, here's the experiment part. I've never done this exactly before. I'm going to not add any watercolor paint to this page. I'm just going to brush it somewhat with a damp brush. Right? Does that make sense? You can see I've switched already over up here to my control grip, which means I'm not as free and sketchy. I'm not in the, how to describe it, not in the real drawing center of my brain. When I hold the pencil in this way, I'm in the control center of my brain. And without apology, as you can see, there are times when this grip is appropriate, right? Generally speaking, though, it's not how you want to do what I call the real drawing. For that, you want this, the side saddle grip, so that essentially your whole arm is moving instead of your fingers. Okay, literally puts you in a different part of your brain when you hold it this way. In fact, some of you, that's precisely why you find this so uncomfortable, because you're not accustomed to drawing out of the part of your brain that's not the control freak part of your brain. Sorry to be kind of mean there, but I want to get the point across very clearly. Okay, when you're holding your pencil in this manner, that's control freak. That's how you know, when you were 6, 7, and 8 years old, you were being hounded and pounded into learning how to write, correct? Yes, you were. It was a challenging experience for most of us. It did not come easily or naturally. We have all forgotten all the pain that we went through learning how to read and write. And so when we hold our pen or pencil in this manner, or brush in this manner, you're tapping into that, for most of us now, ancient, old, decades old impulse or practice of, I think of the proverbial, I never experienced this, but the proverbial nun wrapping your knuckles with a ruler. My impressions of Hebrew school, never experienced that either, but very somewhat similar. never was in either of those, but we can all imagine the authoritarian models. Anyway, so that's the pain that you went through as a kid, learning how to draw. And I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Learning how to write. And for most people, that season does in fact mark the end of their art life. Is the browbeating, so to speak, that they receive, learning how to control the pen. Before that, the little kid is doing delightful little drawings and thrilling mommy and daddy, and all their artwork shows up on the refrigerator, right? You know the drill, right? And for most people, that season, that browbeating season of learning how to write, in fact, does mark the end of their art career. You ever thought about that? It's true. Those evil old browbeaters. In case you wonder how I feel about the new trend about schools no longer teaching their students cursive, well, my opinion is related to what I just told you. When a child is 6, 7, and 8, the slow learners, maybe 9, but 6, 7, and 8, the child is learning how to print, essentially. That's the stick out your tongue, grunt and groan and create letters, okay? As they mature, you see, the key is they loosen up. They are allowed, encouraged, instructed to, in fact, loosen up and begin doing cursive. So now the schools are eliminating that part of the process. And yes, I'm not a huge, conspiracy alarmist type, it's the end of the world kind of thing, but I am definitely concerned about the psychological impact that that's going to have on people. That they're eliminating the fluid, the fluid aspect of language, and so children will be stuck forever with this sort of block lettering. And so anyway, I don't know, not an expert, but as an artist, for what it's worth, I'm not an expert, but my concern is considerable. There's a car parked right in the way over there, and so I took a picture of the part of the scene that I can't. Ooh, I'm glad I did. There's a couple things happening. I had no idea. It's a little square decorative thing there. Rocking chairs on the porch. It's a nice touch. Okay, and once again, I don't trust my ability to get a vertical sitting down. So, you know, I was thinking as I continue after I talked about that, learning cursive. Again, I'm not an expert, and I'm not given to over alarmity, you know, at every little thing and every change. You know, people are always resistant to change. So if we had learned cursive, our kids should do. But think about it this way: in the world of art, among all of us. Hello.
Can I ask you something?
Absolutely.
The boat scene.
Yes.
That's absolutely beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, because we live right at the end of Ann Street, and I look at that all the time.
Do you
I see
really?
those boats all
Oh,
the time.
the big boat scene.
Yeah,
Oh, well, thank you. Would you like to buy it?
How much would it go for?
$750.
$750.
Which is 1/3 of what they've been. I was in, you know, here, Maddie King for many years.
Uh-huh.
I've pulled out of all galleries so I can sell paintings as cheap as I want.
Is that right?
So, yeah.
I,
Wait till I'm done. Come back and look at it tomorrow.
okay, so it's not done
No,
yet. Okay.
no, it'll look
So
better.
don't
Think
sell
about
it.
it. Okay,
Don't
what's
sell
your
it.
name?
I've got a long name. Let me tell you. It's a long Dutch name.
Oh, is it really?
And the last name is Van Staveren. And that's my first name. That's Dutch for Gilbert. And I live
And,
on
and how do you pronounce it?
Gijsbertus.
Gijsbertus.
It's a
Gijsbertus.
Yeah.
Gijsbertus Van Staveren.
Van Staveren. Yeah.
Well, I grew up in Western Michigan. Does that
Oh,
mean
you
anything
did.
to you?
There's a lot of Dutch people.
Yeah, and I went to Calvin College. 85% of the student body was Dutch,
Oh, is
so
that right?
I'm pretty
Okay.
good with Dutch names.
So,
Okay, I'll hang on to it. We're taking off Thursday morning or Thursday noon.
okay, because
Come by as late as
I'll
Thursday.
I'll be at the Watercraft Center tomorrow, but I
Okay.
usually walk home.
Okay,
I'd love to see it when it's finished.
let me give you
I don't think you need to do much finishing work.
well, a little bit.
A little bit.
It won't be shockingly different than it is, just a little more finished.
I think it's beautiful.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate
I'll
it.
see you
Okay,
tomorrow.
good, very good.
Unless
Thank
it
you.
rains.
I'll try not to ruin it.
Are you out here when it rains too?
Oh, on the porch.
You'll be on the porch.
Yeah. Thanks for speaking. Thank you. Yeah, ooh, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? Oh, Yahoo! Thank you, Lord. That would pay for the week's work. So in our all of us, our collective, not our collective, our typical, the average, typical art journey, right? I describe it so many times. We spend the first half of our journey in control mode. Are you with me? I don't usually say it that way. And then we some of us, not all, graduate to what I call the second half of the art journey, which is the freedom mode. Boy, there you go. I've never said it that way before. That is bingo, man. See, that's part of the reason why I blab to you guys nonstop. Is because every once in a while something good comes out. Okay, so there again. So that's not how I usually. Let me repeat that. We spend the first half of our art journey learning control. We spend the second half of our art journey learning freedom. Woo! Man, that is a good day. That will as they used to say, that'll preach right there. So I'm inclined to think, and which of those two is in a sense, the more difficult part of the journey? Well, I think if you've got any sense, forgive me, this is, once again, it sounds like I'm putting down our dear friends who stay in the hyper-realistic or the very realistic mode, or the party picture mode, which is even more insulting. But golly, it's the second half of that formula, right? That is the more difficult. I mean, that's when the fun starts, but it's also when the scary part starts, right? So now I'm thinking with our children, they're teaching now children, they're planning to teach them the control phase of penmanship, and they're planning to eliminate the freedom phase of penmanship.
Somebody wants to meet you.
Oh, excellent. Hello,
Hi.
I'm Dan.
This is
Dan,
Angela.
I'm Angela.
Hi, Angela.
Angela's
Clever
a
man.
pastelist.
Thank
I'm so
you.
excited to walk down here.
Well,
and
good.
Lucky guys all
Well,
together.
good. Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Turns out she knew me. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Right.
Can't go anywhere, man.
Oh,
Good for you.
Yeah.
it's gorgeous that.
Well, thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Clever
Appreciate
fellow.
it.
What are you up to now? Just a, yes, how nice.
Just gonna give this as a gift
Oh, yeah, yeah. Good.
for them. Just a
Oh,
quick,
for the
just
house.
for the
Oh.
house.
What a nice
Yeah. So
thing
just
to
a
do.
quick pen. It'll be pen and ink when I'm done,
Yeah,
with just a
that's neat.
touch of watercolor.
Lovely.
Thank
yeah,
you.
She liked
Thank
your
you.
paintings on the porch.
Oh, good.
She was
They're
crazy. I
gorgeous.
said,
Oh,
I'm going
thank
to
you.
introduce you.
Okay.
All right.
Super.
Angela, I'll see
I
you
will
later.
see you tomorrow.
Well, I just talked to Gilbertos.
Oh, I don't know.
He just walks there. He lives down that way, and he's interested in the big one.
I might be too.
Okay, we might have to have an auction Thursday morning.
Thursday morning.
I told him $750.
Really?
Okay, yeah, that's really cheap.
That's giving it away.
You're correct. Thank you for noticing. Thank you. And I've been in galleries for 15 years, and they go for 3 times that much.
Absolutely.
But I've pulled out of all galleries,
I've got sick of it.
so I'm selling them cheap.
I'm totally sick of it. And it's all such an effort, isn't it?
Yeah.
This gallery deal.
Well, they're not doing well anyway. Galleries are folding left
No,
and center.
It seems online is.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the way I'm trying to move, and that's why I'm selling things really cheap. Well, no, except for my commissions.
But you know the thing is, because I sell a lot of 10 by 8s.
Yeah, do ya?
Unframed.
That's what Mike does. That's what he
pastel,
does.
pastel,
Yeah?
And I just put them in plastic.
That's
They're
what
always-
Mike does. Little gouache things,
and I
this
sell
big.
them for $75.
Yeah,
But I sell 3
yeah,
of them.
yeah. Good for you.
So that's what I've
Good
been doing lately. I'm sick of galleries. I've got fed up.
No, we're. I mean, they're nice people, and I enjoyed, but I've pulled out of all. I was in 8 galleries at one time
Really?
across North Carolina.
So where do you live?
Raleigh. We're all from Raleigh.
You're-
What fun. Good. Yeah, well, come back.
Have
We'll
they
have an
spoken
auction.
on it?
Yeah.
Have they-
Well, he's not for sure. I said I have to finish it, so I told him to come back. But if you show up at the same time, we'll just have an auction.
auction and see who wants to go the highest.
That's
yeah.
right.
But that's a giveaway.
Thank you for noticing. You blessed me with that realization. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Fun.
Thank
I've
you.
spent my day walking.
Oh, what fun. Good. Thank you.
I'll see you tomorrow.
That's good. I don't know if you could hear what she was saying. She asked how much for that painting, and I said $750, and she scowled and said, "Oh, that's giving it away." So, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I do appreciate that. You are correct.
Okay, see you later, Angela.
Go, Mike. He remembered her name. Good for him. He's been doing this, what we all ought to do is, tricks for remembering people's names. I'll have to tell him that I noticed that he just called her by name as she walked off. All right. Hey, in case you've missed, yeah, somebody said this is a productive day. You're right, man. 4 broadcasts in one day. Let me look at your chats here for a minute. Hello, Monique. Good to have you here again. Well, yeah, it is late over there, isn't it? Good night. I'm sure you're gone already. Blank Canvas, haven't heard from you for a while. Thank you. Good night. I'm wearing, that's right, I'm wearing casual clothes. That is rare. Muskie says, I've been using the grit for a few months now. I can't help you enough for the tip. Thank you enough for the tip. Oh, really? Oh, good. All right, 2 hands. Way to go, Muskie. Oh, way to go. And Rosa. Thank you for all of you for your delightful interactions. I guess I like people. I must like people. Oh, I eliminated the driveway completely. That was an accident. But it's going to stay that way. There's no driveway. I don't know. The owners of the house will probably notice that there's no driveway, but that's the way it goes. Interesting, my observation, the outside of this house is, I mean, for the neighborhood, it is almost grand. You know, it's almost grand. It's quite stately and large and so forth. But the inside is very much that old-fashioned, and nothing wrong with it, it's fascinating. But the inside is that old-fashioned, narrow hallways, tiny bathrooms, small kitchen. Well, so far, the halls are small, the bathrooms are small, the kitchen's small. Then what's large? And the answer is really nothing. It's just divided and subdivided into many small rooms. Like every room, the operative aesthetic is cozy. Oh, isn't that cozy? Oh, isn't that cozy? So different from, modern architectural sensibilities, people that build houses and redesign houses. If you watch Better Homes and Gardens and watch my good friends Chip and Joanna Gaines. I'm kidding. They are not my friends, although they are, 3 degrees or whatever, 7 degrees of separation. They are friends of mine, so they don't know me from the man in the moon. Anyway, Chip and Joanna Gaines, when they're always knocking out walls, always, because people nowadays want big open spaces. Isn't that interesting? And if you think about it, really the cozy aesthetic is perfectly human. Humans can all relate to coziness, so it's not like we can't understand it. We can, but evidently 100 years ago, people highly valued cozy rooms in their house, and today people don't. So that's really interesting. Oh, man, I could get going on architecture. I haven't done that very often, have I? A few times, not too often. I saw some, what you might call god-awful architecture earlier today. I could describe this to you. I can describe this for you. One of the most picturesque locations in this desperately picturesque town. And if you don't believe me, look up A Day in the Life of Beaufort, I think it's called. Anyway, one of my videos from about 8 years ago, I did a several minute video. Right, I gave a picture tour of Beaufort, and so it's a charming town. Anyway, one of the most picturesque places in town, believe it or not, is a cemetery. Deeded, it says, to the town of Beaufort in 1731. So, wow, wait, 1731. 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, so 300 years ago. Coming up on 300 years old. Anyway, and it is an amazing cemetery. Now, if you're a person who just hates cemeteries because of what they represent, then you won't like this. But the rest of us, on one hand, if you were making a movie that had a haunted cemetery in it, you couldn't possibly find a cemetery more perfect for your purposes than this one. I mean, oh my goodness. Big old gnarly trees, live oaks, the branches just go like this, everywhere. And grave, elaborate old grave markers. I mean, 300 years old, so it's just, and heavily overgrown. I mean, I don't mean like weeds and briars, but I mean big trees, overgrown in that sense. So it's shady. It's kept, of course. It's not neglected. I don't mean that, but big trees. Anyway, beautiful, and I've painted it several times. It's just 2 blocks from where I sit right here, maybe 3 blocks. And but in 1960s, somewhere in the 1960s, the Baptist Church, Lord help the Baptists, they owned the property right beside the cemetery. The cemetery was Methodist. maybe there's a little feud going on there. Anyway, in the 1960s, the Baptists wanted to build a multi-purpose building, so they did. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be picking on my poor Baptist friends, but so they built this red brick modern monstrosity, and it goes right up to the edge. I mean, inches from the last gravestone. So the cemetery is gorgeous as long as you don't face west. Just keep your nose pointed north, south, or east, and it's like, oh, this is enchanting, until you turn west, and then there's this, like I said, this god-awful, I'm sorry to use such horrible language, hope my mom's not listening. It's just horrible, and it's like, what on earth were you thinking? You've got this world-class, spectacular cemetery right here, and you built this red brick horror. That's the real horror story. is the modern, and modern is the operative word here. The old, many of you've heard. You think it's a good thing because you were taught this is a good thing. Form follows function. Oh yeah, that sounds so intelligent. Don't get sucked into that crap. There is a sense in which form following function is a good thing, but it's a mantra of the modern era, and it gave us, frankly, look at all the gray cinder block monstrosities in Moscow, for instance. Those are modern, my friends. Horrible modern. Disgusting. Anyway, there. See, I got a rant. David, somebody was saying earlier I had very few rants this week. All right, I'm one closer to normal now. Oh. Anyway, I was just driving here just a few minutes ago. Drove by that, as I said, that architectural monstrosity, and laughed and cried again. Oh, what were you thinking? I have many examples of that. One of my favorites, since I'm ranting. And by the way, this is related. This is all related to the modern, and I mean that in the strict sense of the word, in the philosophical, architectural sense of the word. Basically, essentially, I think the modern era was the sewer of human architectural history. So in case you wonder how I feel. Now, I'm sorry, there are some buildings that are modern aesthetic. I'm dividing it kind of carefully here. There are some buildings that follow the modern aesthetic that's different from the run-of-the-mill 1952 architect who is just following the crowd and creating modern monstrosities. Anyway, I was going to say one of the worst. I grew up in Michigan, and part of that time was in Petoskey, Michigan. Google it sometime. No doubt, without question, the most beautiful place I've ever lived. In my opinion, San Francisco has nothing on Petoskey, Michigan, and I know that's probably sacrilegious to say that. But anyway, it's beautiful. And right next to Petoskey is, the technical term, I believe, the closest is, there's a Chautauqua. Now here's a good day, and again, this is especially for you Americans. Most people don't know what a Chautauqua is, but in the 1860s, 70s, 90s, you in fact would have known what a Chautauqua was. It was a social movement in the 1870s, 80s, and 90s. I believe that timing is correct. After the Civil War, I believe. It was a social movement. It was part of the positive or progressive movement. Every day in every way, we're getting better and better kind of worldview. And it came out of the Methodist denomination. It came indirectly out of camp meetings. Now, the first of these meetings was held in Chautauqua, New York, I believe. That's spelled Chautauqua. Chautauqua, I believe that's how it's spelled. So the first of these meetings, it was where all these white rich people, that's not really germane to the subject, but you know, there probably weren't very many black people, I'm just guessing. Anyway, sorry for that moment of distraction. Anyway, they set up tents, like big tent, they didn't have lightweight, camper tents back then. Like tent meeting tents, like old revival tents, that kind of tent, okay? And they would have concerts and lectures all day long, every day for a week or two or something like that. I don't know how long they lasted, that's my guess. Okay, and that was called, because the first one took place in Chautauqua, I think New York, and it went so well, they said, oh, let's do this again. So they started doing it every year, and then they started doing them in various places around the country. Are you with me? So after a while, this is turning into a long story, but it's a little bit of American history most of you have never heard of. So shut up and listen. Oh boy. Just when you think he's about to get nice, he goes nasty again. After a few years, the tents were replaced by stick-built cottages, Victorian and sometimes large, not always, but sometimes large Victorian cottages. And the word I use mostly is rambling Victorian cottages. Okay, so there are several of these. Ocean Grove, I think it's called Ocean Grove, New Jersey, is one of the most famous. And Bayview, Michigan is the one that's right outside Petoskey, Michigan. So it is just beautiful grounds. And up in Michigan, the University of Michigan music department, I think they moved their whole, at least they used to, move their whole music department from Ann Arbor up to Bayview every summer. So to this day, it is still concerts on the lawn, concerts in the auditorium, big, rambling, huge auditoriums, you know. Anyway, that's what a Chautauqua is. It's okay. Huge 100-year-old trees, not 250-year-old trees, and symphony concerts and opera concerts, kind of highbrow stuff, you know. We're not talking bluegrass necessarily here. We're talking university, and I played in the orchestra when I was in college, and the first chair of every section was a professional hired out from some orchestra somewhere else in the country. The conductor that year was the conductor of the Pittsburgh Symphony, so it was a great honor for me to play with him. And and big rambling, big green lawns, green grass, rolling green lawns, huge trees, and string quartets on the grass. You got the picture? And sometime in the 1950s, they needed some kind of building, administrative building or something. I'm back to my rant about architecture. So golly, it was the 50s. And so they had to build a building. So you know what they did? They built a monstrosity. They built one of those yellow brick, kind of like a lot of us went to elementary schools made out of this stuff. Yellow, blonde brick with, wait, I need to get my tissue up just because I think I'm going to need to do some blotting. Blonde brick with aluminum framed windows that rolled out, you know, anyway, and square. Absolutely no decor on the building at all. Completely square. I mean, as devoid of architectural element as they could possibly make it. And it is horrid. To use my language of a few minutes ago, it is an absolute monstrosity. Fortunately, it's not huge, so, you know, monstrosity has the connotation of being big. So it's physically, it's not big, but oh my goodness. In the middle of this fairy tale land, this Chautauqua, which is just like a little bit of heaven that accidentally landed on the planet. And here they have this modern building. It is hilarious and tragic. I'm laughing so I don't cry. There's some of that in this very town right here in Beaufort, by the way. There is in every beautiful little town in America. Back in the 50s or 60s, they went, golly, let's modernize. Modern's the way to go. Modern is where it's at. Let's modernize this place. You follow me? You see this everywhere, at least in America. I don't know what they were thinking. In fact, one of the most charming towns in America to this day is Asheville, North Carolina, up in the mountains. A real tourist haven. And a big part of the reason why Asheville is so popular with tourists, why people go there, and it's artsy and it's music in the streets, you know, real beautiful mountain town. One of the reasons it's so popular is that back in the 50s and 60s, when Raleigh and the big towns were modernizing, so stripping, ripping all the, what's the word I'm looking for? The gingerbread, anyway, all the decorations off their buildings and putting up modern, you know what I'm talking about? That modern monstrosity crap. Anyway, Asheville was so poor as a city, their economy was so poor, they couldn't afford to modernize. So they were stuck with their buildings with all the bric-a-brac, that's the word I was looking for, with all the decorations on them from the 1890s and the 1920s. So you can imagine that's why it's a beautiful town today, because all the buildings didn't get raped and pillaged, didn't get stripped back when stripping buildings was the thing to do. Well, I talked about this a while ago, didn't I, when I was painting downtown Raleigh, and I was explaining how all the buildings on our main street, not all of them, but most of them, have been restored back to their pre-modern glory. So I really do think that the modern was a temporary and momentary collective insanity. Now there was there was beautiful modern stuff, but that's different. That's a modern aesthetic, like you know, what's his name, falling water guy, the American Frank Lloyd Wright was modern, but no, that was a modern aesthetic. He was after beauty, and you see the essence of modernity is it's against beauty, even in architecture. That's what's meant basically by form follows function. It means basically, get that damn decoration off of that building. Yeah, there. You never heard it put quite that way, have you? And it turns out human beings are, in my opinion is correct, human beings are innately, they cannot help. Human beings can't help being decorative. All right, this broadcast has gone on long enough, and I've got a couple good rants in. I feel good. I am going to do cross-hatching on this, but I have to wait for it to dry, of course. Let me see. Is anybody making any? So I'm going to pause here. I've been ranting and raving long enough. Thanks for joining me. Hey, I don't think you even ever saw my face. So I've got this, I have in my van, I keep this really cool umbrella. I don't need it now, but when I first sat down here, the sun was right in my eyes. And I have this nifty lawn chair that I got on sale at Harbor Freight Tools for 20 bucks. Are you envious? You should be. All right. Enough nonsense. I don't know if I'm going to broadcast anymore. Goodness knows, I've broadcasted the heck out of you today. Probably tomorrow. Okay. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for your comments, and you guys that watch later, please leave a comment and be sure to subscribe. I appreciate it very much. All right, bye-bye.